Hello and welcome to the video for After Effects for week 17. This is the video for Monday. So we've got a presentation due from EJ, and please go ahead and put your presentation in your class folder and let me know where it is so I can share that with the class. We also have a tutorial today. It's called Removing a Large Object from a Video. I'm just going to click on this link here. And this is one of the tutorials where you don't have a video to follow, just the project files, the lesson files right here to download. And then you just go ahead and read the text and look at the images, the screenshots to do the tutorial. So that's a pretty interesting one. It should be pretty fun. Okay, so your deadline for your project 3 that you're working on right now is May 6th, which is Wednesday. So please finish those and upload them to your Google Drive and send me a link to where they are so I can take a look at them, give you a grade for them, and also post them up on the website so people can check them out. Now, today what we're going to talk about is still working in this video here, trying to come up with different techniques of things that I can do to make it interesting, techniques that you can use in your projects. So I think what I'm going to do is just create a brand new composition. So I can click here and create a brand new comp, leave it at the same size as the existing composition. Oop, actually that one kind of came in kind of bigger, didn't it? Ooh, looks like I'm missing a few things in this video. Alright, so, well, let's see. Here's the main video here. Alright, so let's see. If we want to make a new composition have be the size of this composition, we have to check out what the size is. So, composition settings, 1920 by 1080. Okay, sounds good. 1920 by 1080. Alright, so if I click here to make a new composition, see, for some reason it's making it too big. 1920 by 1080. And actually, I need to check the frame rate on this other one too, because I need to make sure everything's going to line up. So let's see what the composition settings are. So 2997. Okay, 1920 by 1080 and 2997 is the frame rate. Okay, so let's see, composition, new. Let me put in the 2997, and then 1920 by 1080. Okay, and then this should fit nicely in, if I just drop it in that composition. And for the background color, I guess a neutral gray is fine. And so I'll just call this one 3D text. And hit OK. Okay, so now we're in my new mini comp or nested composition. And what I want to do is click on my text tool here. I want to have the white as the color. And I want to go ahead and type some text. So I'm going to put on my caps lock and type Everybody Sing About Love, which is the name of this video. And then I'll bring everything size-wise down. Okay, maybe a bit so I have some room to work. Okay, and then I have to change the font on this. So the font is one called Spicy Rice. So let me see if I can find that. The font that's used in this. There it is, Spicy Rice. Okay, and then I need to format this. You guys might be in the same position at some point where you need to create some font or create some text and use a specific font and then format it to look like something that exists. So well, my plan here is I want to take this text and I want to arrange it in the format that is being used in the video. and then make it 3D and extrude it. And extruding it, of course, is where you pull it out and make it look three-dimensional. So to see how this looks in the video, we have to go over here to the internet, to this page right here. So this is a little sticker that I made that corresponds to the song. So you can see how I can't roll over this because it gets big like that. Maybe if I go like this. Okay. So you can see how it is. It's that same font, Spicy Rice, but Everybody Sing About is all the same size, and then Love takes up the entire width of that underneath. So that's the goal. That's what I'm looking to do with the text, which is in After Effects right now. So that means that what I probably want to do is, push Love down to the next line. It's pretty close right now. See, Everybody in Sing About, they have a nice, it seems to just work out that that's about the same width. But this one needs to be different. So it would be easier for me, excuse me, to just take this word love off of here and maybe move this text box up a little bit. Well, I just thought about something. I'm going to make this 3D text, and maybe it would be better if it was all the same. I was thinking, normally when I'm doing graphic design, I would probably try and make this a separate file if I was going to make it bigger. But for right now, since we're going to make it 3D text, it would be better if it were all one big giant text block, right? So I'm basically going to increase the size of the word love until it's essentially the same width as those. I also need to decrease the line spacing, which is, let's see, these look kind of weird. Over here, here it is, where it says auto. I'm just going to put some, I'll just click on this and drag it to the left a little bit, see what happens. Yeah, okay, so that brings the word love up, but clearly too far. So I have to just click on it and drag it to the right and hope that at some point something happens. Nothing appears to be happening whatsoever, which is kind of, disheartening to say the least. Let's see, what if I put in 72? What happens? Wow, everything just goes to hell. Okay. So at least we're getting some movement here. At least things are happening. So I'll just keep clicking on this. Now, see, the problem is, first of all, I have to make my text box bigger. But the spacing that you're going to get here is going to be different than the spacing that you want between these two. So you got to try and highlight these two and change the spacing there to see if you can get that to change without the other spacing changing. And it looks like it's working. So just by highlighting those two lines, and then if we can get sort of a similar kind of spacing between this line and that line, and the last line in this line, will be pretty much golden. So maybe just a little less, something like that. Whoops. All right, what do we want? The text tool there. Okay. So now we have this text, Everybody Sing About Love, and it is, oops, I got my caps lock on, so I got to turn that off. It looks similar to what we have here and what's on the video itself. Okay, so now we can start playing with taking that into the 3D space and turning it, extruding the text, so we can see how that works. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this is aligned both horizontally and vertically in the center of the page. So I'm going to click on my Align drop-down menu here. I'm going to click here to align it horizontally, and then I'm going to click here to align it vertically. Okay, now the next thing you want to do is you want to come down to your layer, and of course you want to make sure your switches are showing. Oh, these are the switches here, and you can click here to go back and forth to toggle between switches and modes view. And in the switches, we see the little icon of the three-dimensional cube, and that, of course, clicking the checkbox beneath that will turn this into a 3D layer. And you can see that's a 3D layer because now it has the three arrows in the center, the one pointing along the x-axis, the y-axis, and a blue one pointing straight towards us, which is the z-axis. Okay, the next thing we want to do is set up a new camera, and setting up that camera will allow us to change our perspective, our point of view in regards to the text, and allow us to make it three-dimensional. So let's go under Layer, New, and then Camera. Now obviously you can make a bunch of choices in here. You can change your name of your camera, the type of lens that you're using. You can change information down here, change the type of camera right here. But for what our purposes, just using the default camera is going to work just fine. So just go ahead and click OK, and you'll see that it makes a new layer here called Camera 1. Okay, now if we twirl open the layer here with the text, we can see that because of this 3D option that we have here, it's put in some more features for us. So there's material options, which are basically the lighting options to make that look like different materials. And then there's geometry options, which is normally where our extrusion would be, but you can see that that's kind of grayed out and it's not working. And then there's this thing called change renderer here. You can also see it up here. This is the renderer that is being used currently. It's called Classic 3D. Now, if you either click on change renderer there or you click on this here, it'll bring up this little drop-down menu that will allow you to change the renderer. And here it says that the 3D renderer is used to create 3D layers, but you can't really extrude text in the type of 3D layers that the Classic 3D renderer does. So you have to actually click on this and switch it over to Cinema 4D. And when you do, it says right here that it is now Cinema 4D can be used to extrude 3D text, right? Or 3D work. But this allows you to enable certain features while also simultaneously disabling other features. So using Cinema 4D for, you probably, after you use Cinema 4D to create your extruded text, you might consider going back to Cinema 3D for the rest of your presentation that you're creating, because it's going to disable so many things, as you see in the list over here on the right. Things like motion blur and track mats and things like that. But anyway, for right now, for what we need to do, we're going to go ahead and switch it over. So we're going to hit OK. You're going to see that the render has changed, and now you're going to see that this geometry options is not grayed out any longer. So we can open that up. And now you can see that there are some tools here for extruding the text. And extruding, of course, is the official term for taking 2D text and basically stretching front of it out so that it's 3D text. It's called extruding the text. Okay, now what we want to do is maybe make a different color for the front of the text and a different color for the sort of extruded part of the text, which we can't really see yet. But if we go down here, there's a little animate button here on the object, which is everybody's thinking about love. Click on that, and we come down here and we see that we have front, and we can go color, and we can go RGB, and then we can choose whatever color we want. You can pick it right here. So it just defaulted to a little red color there, which is fine. And then we can choose the bevel itself, and we can choose a color and RGB, and that's going to come in at the same color. But maybe we want the bevel to be a different color, so let me just pick kind of a yellow color here. And so that, we still can't see yet, but the red color is the front of the text, and the bevel color, the part that is extruded back, is the yellow color. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to be able to move this object around, and we're going to do that in kind of a strange way. We're going to create something called a null object. And a null object is basically, null means nothing. A null object is basically an invisible object that's going to help us do certain things, right? So what we want to do is we're going to create a new null object. So we're going to go to Layer, New, Null Object. And you can see that that is created right here underneath the camera. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable 3D for the null object. And then we're going to click on this thing called the pick whip, which is going to allow us to parent it. And we're going to make it so that the null object is parented to the camera. All right. So the null object is, that sort of empty box thing, right? Now, if I open up the information for the null object and the transform information, now normally this information here, the orientation of this is going to be down here in the lower right corner. So normally these numbers here, this 0, 0, and 0, they would be different numbers. They would place this null object down here in the lower right corner. So when you open yours, what you want to do is go down here to orientation, and if you see different numbers in here, and you may see this null object appear down here in the corner, go ahead and reset them to 0, 0, and 0. And that's what you want your null object to be, right? Now mine's already set like that because I've been playing with this a little bit. So do that. Go ahead and set the orientation to 0, 0, 0. Okay. So now we've got our null object set into the center. We're going to take our null object and deconnect it from the camera. We're going to go in here to the parenting and we're going to change it to none. So now this is no longer connected to the camera. But then we're going to click on our object itself, which is the text, and now we're going to parent this object to the null object, which is right in the center of the screen there. So we can click on our pick whip here for the text and drag it up here to the null object. Okay, so now just to summarize what just happened, we created this null object, which is this invisible object, and we parented it to the camera. Now on your screens it's probably going to show up, this little empty box is going to show up over here. Then we opened up the null object and we changed its orientation, which is its position, to 0, 0, 0, which put it in the center. We removed the parenting of the null to the camera, and then we went ahead and parented the object, which is the text, to the null. Okay, so now we can go into the null object. Oh, sorry, I don't know if you heard that, but my phone rang while I was making the video, so I had to stop the video. Anyway, now what we can do is we can go into the null object and we can open up its transformation settings here. And we can go to where the Y and the X and the Z rotations are. We can hover our mouse over this Y rotation, the second number here, and click on it and drag it to the right. And what it's going to do is it's going to rotate the text around so we can see it in the Y plane, right? Which is, it's turning it a little to the right so we can see the edge of it. If we want to move it in the X plane, we can click on this second thing here in the X. We can either make it come up like that, or we can kind of make it go, where its origin point is down or where its origin point is up. So we can experiment with that and see, which one of these we like. Of course, the Z is just going to bring it closer to us or further away. So you just kind of play with this. I'm curious what it'll look like if it's coming up. If it's originating lower and coming up. So let me try and achieve that. A little bit tricky. You have to click on these things and figure out which direction to move them. And then of course you have to move the Y after you move that one to try and get the desired effect. And it's whatever you want to do. So I'll go ahead and just pick something that I think kind of works a little bit. Let's see what that looks like when it renders. Okay, and just to show you what the Z looks like, if we click on this and we move it, this is going to move it sort of around, right? So let me do that so that it's a little more. It looks like it could be a little straighter. It looks like it's kind of going up on the end here. So let me mess with the Z a little bit and see if I can. Let's see, take it that way just a little. It's kind of hard, but it's really hard. Now, of course, you can put numbers in here, which might be the way to go. But that looks, let's see, so what's my number is 2, And so sometimes it's easier to just put the numbers in here. So let's do the 1 and see how that looks. Um, let's do 1.5. I kind of in between. Okay, I can live with that. So, um, and obviously you can mess with this as much as you want. You can mess with the colors back there. It's kind of strange. I chosen uh, yellow for my bevel color, and it came out white. So I could go mess around with that, but I don't really mind the white. So I think I'll just kind of leave it like that for now. Okay, so now that we know what the extrusion looks like, now we can proceed to animate that a little bit. So what I want to happen is I want to take my, first I'll close up my null object here, and I'll come down here to my text object. And what I want to do is I want to grab this playback head and drag it down to around 1 second, right? And at that point, I want my extrusion to be totally this. I want it to be 500. So I'm going to click to create a keyframe on the stopwatch at 500 at 1 second. So then I can grab my playback head and drag it back to the beginning. I can click here on this 500 and make it 0 and hit enter. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be no extrusion at the very beginning. And then as we go over 1 second, the extrusion grows out. Now, of course, it's rendering at a low rate right now, which is why you see it be all blocky like that. But of course, after it catches up, then it's going to look nice like that. Okay, now the next thing we may want to do is add some easing to this text, the easy ease function, which of course can be controlled to speed animation up or slow it down, or do both, speed it up and slow it down. And so if I go ahead and drag a marquee around these two keyframes, which are the animation keyframes, I can right click on either of them and I can go to keyframe assistant, and you can see there's easy ease in and ease out. You can apply those individually to the keyframes, or you can just simply go down here and choose easy ease, and that will take each of these and make them the sort of hourglass shape. And then let's see, if you click on this little graph editor here, you can see what the easy ease graph looks like, and of course you can change that if you want. I believe that this is showing that it starts out kind of slow and speeds up and then slows down at the end. And of course you could click and make points on this. You can mess around with this, whatever you want to do. But we'll just leave it like that, and I'm not going to show it right now what it looks like because it'll take a minute to render. So maybe we'll show that at the end. Okay, so we have our animation of the extrusion, but maybe we want to add one more thing to spice it up a little bit. So let's also scale it up from its original starting point to this area here. So what we'll do, we'll close up the camera, and we're going to operate that scaling from the null. So what you need to do is make sure that you can see where the endpoint is of the animation, the 1 second there, and move your playback head to the 1 second. Open up the null layer and find where it says scale, and you see all three numbers, the X, Y, Z there, and go ahead and click your stopwatch there to insert a keyframe. Then grab your playback head and drag it all the way back to the beginning, and now click on these numbers here, any one of these numbers, the first one's fine, and drag it over to the left and drag it down until the text here basically becomes very small. Like I've got mine all the way down to 1.0, 1.0, 1.0, right? So now what happens is we've shrunk the text down, so over that 1 second, the text is going to be scaling up at the same time that the extrusion is happening. So the text is going to be going from small to large, and it's also extruding from basically no extrusion to all of that extrusion there. And so that's our special effect. So now I can hit the play button and let it do its little rendering thing here, which, after it renders, after it takes long enough to render that full 1 second, we should be able to go back and play it and see it at a more normal speed and see how it looks. Obviously it's going right now, but we're almost there. We're almost at the 1 second. So once that's done, we'll stop it and we'll go back and we'll run it again. Okay, there we go. Um, so there it goes. It's kind of a weird chunky. Oh, you know what that is? That's the ease. I think is doing that. Yeah. So let me stop it for a second. I'm curious about that. I wonder if we got rid of the ease, uh, if that's going to make a change, because it looks kind of weird. Let's see. Keyframe assistant. Okay, so normally the easy ease is a plus. It makes things look more realistic, but in this case, it creates this kind of stutter step because it's only 1 second's worth of animation, and so it's slow, and then it speeds up, and then it's slow again. It just kind of looks weird. So what you need to do is make sure you can see your easy ease keyframes down here. You know, you have to open the geometry options here on the text layer, highlight them both, and then click on this little button here to reveal the easy ease, and you can see that's the slow rise to a regular rate and then slow down again. So what you can do is click on these little points here, and you get these handles, and you turn them both so that they're facing each other, so that you get basically a constant acceleration. So if we take these and we drag the little heads down until it's like pretty much like a straight line, and it doesn't have to be perfect because whatever it is, it's going to be better than what we had. But now this is a continuous acceleration from this when this is scaled down to 1 all the way to scaled up to 100% of what it is now. So now we can close this. Of course, we're going to have to render it again, which means hitting the space bar and letting the machine go ahead and render all the frames. And once that's done, we'll get to see it again, but this time it should come at a much more regular rate. And then once we see that, you know, obviously if you want to make any more changes to the way things look, you can do that. But this should definitely be a better presentation of the idea, which is going from small to large and going from just regular text to extruded text. So here we go. This is now rendered, so let's see what it looks like. Right, so it still looks a little funky, and then it's still like kind of, you know, coming at you or whatever, but it's a more constant acceleration. And in fact, it's a little more interesting. We might even be able to animate that in such a way that it goes with the beat of the music, which would be a cool trick to do. Okay, but I'm going to stop right there. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys. We went through the situation of creating some text and then creating the bevel. We were able to color the front differently than the back. We created the null, which made it easy for us to move around and see the text from different angles. We created a camera. And then, of course, we were able to scale the text from very small up to very large so that we could get that effect. And then, of course, we changed the easing to change the manner in which it looked. And you know, it was still a little funky. It was still a little sporadic. Some of that may be because I have a lot of programs open right now, and After Effects can't access all the memory it would need to do a smooth transition. So, you know, when this is finally rendered, it might be a very smooth transition. I can close some programs down, even shut my computer down and restart, and then try it again and see if it previews a little smoother. Okay, but that's going to be it for today. So please remember that on Wednesday, Project 3 is due, and please turn that in and let me know when it's there. Maybe send me a link to it so I can find it. And let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you again on Wednesday.